This is Focus on Liberia. My name is Jeremiah Moba, the Environmental Protection Agency of Liberia. It's celebrating World Environment Day here, live at the Paynesville town hall.
We'll think about another one. But we gotta go back to our program. This program is meant for you to enjoy it. And as you enjoy it, you may have a retrospect on some of the roads you have gone to this environment. Deep down in your heart, you know you have buried plastics. Deep down in your heart, you know you have piled some dice and burned them. I said, deep down in your heart, you buy plastic bag every day. Deep down in your heart, you feel you cannot do without plastic. Mother Earth is crying because of your evil deeds. Please, retrospect the evil things you have done to this earth. How are you going to reconcile with earth? And you can do it as never. Get that basket made of thread and take it to the market, ladies. There are lots you can do. If you compare to one bag as a market bag compared to it. But I want to see the show from a group that called it night. They will come out to say something to you people. And when they come up, I want each and every one of you, before you leave this hall today, make a commitment to yourself. Be honest to yourself. Like when somebody say, when the lady agreed to the man say, I will marry you. Yes, I will marry you. That's why I'm making clear to his friend. And for the women, when the man say, I will marry you, that music girl they are getting. Take that same happiness and joy and leave this room, making commitment to saving Mother Earth. At this point in time, we will now listen to our special keynote address. But before we do that, we want to call on Deviata L. Linda, Awareness Officer of the Environmental Protection Agency, as she introduced the keynote speaker for today. Let's give it up for her, please.
Hello everyone. His Excellency Joseph Boaka, President of the Republic of Liberia. His Excellency Jeremiah Kanku, Vice President of the Republic of Liberia. Dr. Emmanuel Kieyure Yakwaolo, Executive Director of the EPA. Honorable Dwe S. Bole, Deputy Executive Director of the EPA. Government officials here present, platform guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Today, as we join millions around the world to reflect on our collective responsibility to protect and preserve our planet, we are reminded that meaningful change begins with awareness, action, and strong leadership. It is in this spirit that we are truly privileged to have with us a remarkable individual whose work and passion have made lasting impact in the field of environmental sustainability. Please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Aliyu Mamadou Diab, the new resident representative of UNDP in Liberia, officially took up his post on the 16th of December 2024. Mr. Diab has over 20 years of work experience working on sustainable development issues in Africa with the United Nations. In his previous assignments, he served as UNDP resident representative in Togo and Cameroon. He also had a senior position as Africa team leader on climate change, access to energy, resilience, and crisis prevention at the UNDP Regional Center in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Prior to that, he worked as a regional advisor for Eastern and Southern Africa on resilience building, disaster risk reduction, crisis prevention, and recovery based at the UNDP Hub in Johannesburg, South Africa. In addition, he was employed by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction as a regional advisor for disaster risk reduction in West Africa, based at EPA in Abuja, Nigeria. Additionally, he worked as a humanitarian geographic information officer in the Unoka Regional Office for West and Central Africa, based in Dakar, Senegal. During his previous assignments, he assisted more than 30 UNDP offices and their government counterparts in Africa in executing their country program and national development plan through a sustainable development framework. Mr. Diab holds a diploma in approfondie in geosciences and physical geography from the University in Dakar, Senegal. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a warm round of applause as we welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Aliyu Mamadou Diab.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm very honored and privileged to join you today on this very important occasion. But before that, I would like to recognize and thank the executive director of the EPA and all the colleagues who are in the room for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. Even though I am away, but I have found time to talk to you today on this World Environment Day. Global Chief, big plastic pollution. As you know, the World Environment Day is not just about revolution. It's a call to conscience. It's a moment of economy. And today, as you know, we confront a crisis that is both silent but also visible, which is also insidious and overwhelming. The scourge of plastic pollution. Colleagues, your friends, participants, guests, this is a very serious topic today. Because each year the world produces more than 430 million tons of plastic. 430 million tons of plastic every year. And 2/3 of which becomes waste. Over 20 million tons of that 430 million, over 20 million tons goes into our oceans annually. They suffocate marine ecosystems, contaminate water sources, and they even enter in our food chain. And we have seen that microplastics have been found in the air we breathe. So salt we consume, because if you put 12 million tons in the ocean, and we can consume from the ocean, obviously, we're going to get microplastics in the salt that we consume. And we have even seen microplastics in human blood streams. And what is happening globally is also the same situation that we see in our context in Liberia. And Liberia, as I said, is not immune to this crisis. I live in Monrovia. In Monrovia, even I have visited also some other urban centers. I have seen by my own eyes, if I can put it that way, the plastic waste blocked drainage systems. I was in the Somalia not long ago in some of the slums, and I've been really shocked. But what I saw everywhere is plastic. So they are blocking in our drainage systems. They contribute to flooding. You know the flooding situation that we have. And they serve also as breeding grounds for disease carrying vectors like malaria and so on. In rural communities, plastics are also often burned in open pits, releasing harmful toxins that impact air quality and public health. Friends, plastic pollution is no longer an environmental issue alone. If we take it only as an environmental issue, we are missing the point. Yes, it's harmful to our environment, but beyond that, it's a development issue. Plastic pollution is a health issue as well, but more than that, it's a human rights issue. And above all, it's a challenge that demands collective, coordinated, and courageous response. Let us not forget, behind every plastic is a story. If you see a child hospitalized due to malaria, after plastic blocked drainage, created stagnant water pools, all the time, So the plastic blocking our waterways. Mosquitoes are coming from those waterways, and then eating people, and they end up having malaria. If we haven't polluted our planet, our rivers with plastic, hopefully the runoff, the water will go away, and then there will be no stagnation of water, so that will decrease our exposure to malaria. That's why I said it's really a health issue. We also see women who return from our empty nets because marine life has migrated or perished. Because if you put 12 million tons in the ocean, how are we going to expect to get fish out of that ocean? Of course, once the ocean is polluted, marine species, fish, all the species will run there. So that's why you see the fishermen go to the ocean, come back without no fish and nothing. So this is not the future we want. with you. And this is not the legacy we can accept also. We don't want it. But we don't want to leave the legacy also. The people, we cannot accept it. So we have to do something about it. But, of course, there is hope. Because I do believe that what is made, what is man-made, can be unmade. What is unsustainable can be transformed. And what is broken can be built. So that's the challenge that we have ahead of us. And how are we going to build it? And Liberia has a unique opportunity to build and to make the unsustainable sustainable and to really take ownership by doing what? Simply by implementing the IS agenda for inclusive growth, for inclusive development. Because I do believe the response must be national. It must be strategic, and it must be fully embedded in the IS agenda. As I said, if you take the agriculture sector, for us to meet the objectives of the IS agenda on agriculture, for us to meet that objective, our soil in Liberia must be healthy. Because plastic debris liberates its fertility. So we have to ban the dumping and burning of plastic on farmlands throughout the country. We need to train farmers to compost, not to contaminate the soil. If you take another component of the IS agenda, which is infrastructure, let me talk about roads. Because roads infrastructure are vital for the progress of Liberia. But because of road drainage caused by plastic waste, destroys millions of roads again. So then we have to design and maintain roads with resilient waste system in mind. Even if you take the rule of law, the time for Liberia has come to enforce anti-littering laws and prosecute illegal dumping. We need plastic regulation, I will come back to it, that are backed by political will and enforced by the courts. And I have heard the executive director of EPA talking to that. On the education sector, I believe that every child in Liberia must grow up knowing the value of a clean environment. Environmental science should be taught at all levels at school. And I believe that schools must lead in creating a zero-waste campuses. Somewhere else we have worked with schools to really build that knowledge. You take the sanitation and tourism. Liberia is aiming to be a tourist place because of the beauty of the natural capital, the beauty of forests and all of that. But forests, beaches, and wildlife, even though they are assets that are being fully and partly impacted by plastic pollution. What we need to do is to brand Liberia as a destination for ecotourism and ensure tourists are greeted with clean, green, and plastic-free beauty. It's possible if you want to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, the IS agenda is not separate from environmental protection. Environmental protection is an engine that will drive every pillar of the AID forward. So that's why in the implementation of the IS agenda we have to take forward we have taken into consideration the very important dimension of environmental sustainability. So, in UNDP, as I speak as the UNDP representative, in UNDP we believe that ending plastic pollution is not only a necessity, and it is achievable, but it's also achievable. We can do something about it. So, for us, working with EPA and all the stakeholders, I want to propose a few ideas on how we can do that. First of all, these are not new ideas. Let me be frank with you, there's nothing new here. Everything here is something that we have been doing, but I think if we've been consistent doing these things and doing it in a better way, we can do something. So I will give probably 4 recommendations. The first one, I talked about it, and as I said, the EPA director has talked about it, is to strengthen and enforce environmental policies. Because Liberia already has foundational frameworks, including the environmental protection and management law. But more robust investigation, enforcement, and interagency coordination are needed to stem the tide of plastic waste. So we recommend that the government of Liberia adopt a national ban or phase out plan for single-use plastics. That will be supported by legislation. So that is very important. For those who went to Rwanda for the last few years, when you land in Rwanda at the airport in Kigali, if you carry a plastic bag, you cannot go out from the airport with it. They will confiscate it and they will give you another bag, a biodegradable bag. So Rwanda has definitely banned plastics. You won't see any plastic flying over in Rwanda. So I think that is something that the government of Liberia could do by adopting a national ban, or if it's too early, hopefully a phased out plan for single-use plastics. Second, I believe that the government needs to create clear standards and incentives for biodegradable alternatives. I don't know if EPA is working on that, but Director, I think this is something that we need to also start considering. And we need to be more than happy to support on that. I think the government and the EPA, in collaboration with EPA, with all the stakeholders, need to establish a national plastic action task force. Without a doubt, it is I will cross-check with my team and with EPA if you have something like that. And if it doesn't, it would be important to establish a national plastic action task force that will integrate ministries, local government, civil society, to coordinate policy and monitor progress. And lastly, government needs to harmonize environmental laws to avoid fragmentation and promote clarity. And when we stand ready to provide technical assistance and policy advisory support to advance this work. The second big pillar of recommendation that I want to share on this one is to invest in sustainable waste management infrastructure. And when I visited West Point, Speedway, Dalatown, and some of the other slums around Monrovia, we've talked about it, sustainable waste management. And how do we build that infrastructure? Because plastic pollution is as much a systems failure as it is a consumption issue. Liberia lacks the waste collection, recycling, and disposal infrastructure needed to manage growing plastic volumes. So we must build that infrastructure. So we urge the expansion, expand waste management waste collection systems in both urban and peri-urban areas, develop centralized and decentralized recycling hubs in partnership with the private sector. We recommend the introduction of extending producer responsibility, what is called the EPA mechanism, requiring producers to take accountability and post-consumer waste, for post-consumer waste. And we also recommend integrate waste management into urban development and climate adaptation strategy. Friends, I know that waste management is a big problem in Liberia, but we need to do something about it. So the third recommendation, pillar of recommendation will be to unleash local innovation and entrepreneurship. Across Liberia, individuals and organizations are already demonstrating what is possible. And I've seen it. I've been all over most of the northern part of the country, and I've seen that. From transforming plastic bottles into building bricks, creating artisanal craft and fashion from plastic bags, ingenuity to arts. We need to tap into that potential. So, from UNDP's perspective, we encourage support for youth and big startups through incubators, grants, and mentorship. And my team is in the room now that we are really putting our heads together to see how we do that. Support youth-led green startups. We have been doing some work already on that, but I want to scale that. I want it to be much more substantial. By creating incubators, grants, giving grants to those who are into green startup, but also providing mentorship. Integration of environmental innovation, TVET and university curricula, something that we're also going to be considering with the Ministry of Youth and Sport. How do we include these elements with the support of EPA into the TVET training, but also working with the University of Liberia to see how we could include some of these elements in the curriculum. We could organize competitions and hackathons to crowdsource new ideas for waste reduction and reuse. I think this is something making sure that we really push our work into innovation and digital. We could use these hackathons and competitions working with EPA to ask young people who have ideas, how do we come with new ways of managing our waste. So, and the fourth one is about mobilizing public awareness and community engagement. We cannot beat plastic pollution without engaging communities, engaging people. And because lasting change begins with informed, inspired citizens. Awareness campaigns, community dialogues that shift mindset and behaviors. So we need to engage people. We definitely need to engage people on these communities, but we have to give them alternatives. It's not about going to people and saying, hey guys, stop using plastics without giving alternatives to them. If they don't use plastics, what are they going to use? Okay? So that for me is quite important. And that work, even though EPA can do it, even though UNDP can the government of Liberia to do it, but more importantly, we need the civil society. We need NGOs. We need civil society organizations. We need community-based organizations. We need place-based organizations to achieve that. So, to amplify environmental education through local language and storytelling, mobilize religious and traditional leaders, I've talked about it, as champions of creation care. We need to tap into that. Local leaders, how are we using local leaders to environmental campaigns, how to plastic pollution campaigns? Not only plastic pollution, but it comes to forest degradation, when it comes to coastal erosion and so on. We need to be able to use our religious and traditional leaders. We need to empower women and youth as frontline defenders of the environment. And I know I'm happy to see in the room. I've seen many women in there. I've seen many young people, and I'm very glad that the EPA plastic pollution is the private sector is not fully on board. And the private sector must be part of the solution, as I said. The producers, the retailers, and the distributors have a critical role to play in reducing plastic at source. So, from our side, we really urge the private sector enterprises to redesign packaging to reduce or eliminate plastic use. That's something also to teach. Because it's all about packaging. If we are packaging with plastic, then, we have to fight the thing problem, at the start, at the source. That's why the working with private sector on redesigning the packaging is quite important. We need to invest in biodegradable alternatives and closed loop systems. Biodegradable alternatives is something that we need to consider. Joint public-private partnership focus on sustainable waste solutions, comply fully with environmental regulation, and proactively contribute to national efforts. So, for each, the private sector has to be part of it. But I do believe, for being in Liberia for almost 8 months now, Liberia has a good authority on this. Liberia could lead by example in West Africa by doing this, everything that I have just said, by becoming a pioneer in plastic waste reduction and circular economy practices. Not only in Liberia, but most of in our countries in Africa, we don't invest in circular economy. I think that's something we need to be to consider. And by doing so, Liberia can attract big investments, strengthen its climate resilience, and create wealthier, cleaner environment for all. So, in line with the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, and the global plastic treaty now under negotiation, Liberian actions towards today will shape its deployment trajectory for decades to come. So, UNDP pledged our continued support to the government of Liberia and the EPA to facilitate international knowledge exchange, to mobilize climate and environmental financing, to strengthen national and subnational capacities, and to accelerate inclusive, sustainable development across Liberia. So let me leave you with a message as I conclude. We all know that plastic pollution is not inevitable, but it is preventable. It will not be solved overnight, but it will be solved through our bold leadership, citizen participation, and unwavering commitment. We owe it to the children playing on Liberia beaches. We owe it to the farmers. We owe it to the fishers. And forest dwellers whose livelihood depend on a healthy environment. And we owe it to future generations who deserve to inherit a planet in a Liberia in balance. So together we can turn the tide. And I believe that together we can beat plastic pollution. And together we can build a Liberia